Welcome to the Facts on Fire Fire Prevention Series. I'm your host, Sonny Cudd, and today we'll be discussing home fire safety. They say that home is where the heart is, but it can also be where the hurt is when fire is involved. On average, 72% of all fire injuries occur in house fires, while 4 out of 5 fire deaths also happen at home. The 3 main ways you can help to decrease your odds of a house fire and injury are by eliminating risk in your living areas, like the kitchen and bedroom, taking special precautions when using supplementary heaters, and avoiding electrical device hazards. Let's start learning to fireproof your home in the kitchen.
I had a good friend of mine who went out to a party one time and had been drinking a little bit, and he was tired. Came home from the party and decided he was hungry, so he was going to cook him something on the stove top. Well, he put the food to warm up, and he laid down on the couch to watch TV and wound up falling asleep. The food naturally caught the kitchen on fire. The only thing that saved his life was the smoke detector. He burned about half the house down. This guy is now a firefighter. It changed his life that drastically.
Here are some spot quiz questions for you. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah, and they've created 3 fire risks. Can you spot them? Baking may not be your piece of cake, but if it is, you'd better first eliminate some hazards before you begin. Can you spot the problem areas with this oven? You're frying away when, bam, a grease fire flares up. Do you know what to do? This time something's burning in the oven. What do you need to do immediately? Now there's a fire in the microwave. What should you do? Jot down your answers and stay tuned to find out the facts on fire.
The majority of house and apartment fires start in the kitchen, and cooking is the leading cause of these fires. Cooking is also the leading cause of fire injuries. Joining me in the studio is Chief Butch Browning. Chief Browning has 17 years in the fire service and is fire chief for the city of Gonzales, Louisiana. Chief, let's talk about some of these kitchen fires that you've been involved with. First of all, what do you think is the main reason for cooking fires?
Well, it's real simple. People are cooking and they leave their pots on the stove unattended. They go out in the backyard and tend to the children, or maybe try and catch up with their vacuuming inside their home somewhere else in the house, and wham, a tragedy occurs.
Sure. Well, what do you think are some ways we can eliminate some of these risks for these fires?
Well, real simple. Be in the kitchen when you're cooking. Never leave a pot on the stove unattended. Basically, turn it off when you leave. There's some other problems that seem to crop up when we have these kitchen fires. People in the kitchen put combustible materials on the stove, maybe the pot holders, different dish towels and things of that nature. Children in our kitchen, we've seen a lot of fires involving them. And aside from fires, we see a lot of scalds that occur when pots get knocked over and children and people in there are injured.
Children may be pulling those pot handles, grabbing hold of the pot handles, maybe pulling something over on them. Can we do something about those handles?
Well, sure. We want to turn the handles on the inside to where if children or adults are passing in front of the stove that they can't knock them over. I think one of the rules that we talk about is a 3-foot rule. We don't want anything within 3 foot of the stove,
right,
whether it be combustible materials or people.
How about loose clothing? Is that something that's okay or something we should avoid?
A lot of fire deaths and injuries have been documented by people's clothes catching on fire while they were cooking. And we're talking about your house coats and robes and things that are loose fitting, long sleeves that aren't secured. They can certainly easily catch on fire.
Okay. We're talking about, or we've been talking about, actions around the stove while cooking. But what about cooking itself and the risk involved while cooking?
Well, I mean, the big risk when cooking is that you're frying grease. The latent vapors of grease is probably the biggest danger. If that grease was to catch on fire, then a fire would occur.
If a fire was to break out, what are some things that we could do to help things out?
Well, and I think the most important thing is to understand what type of fire breaks out. We have different types of fire. The most important fire that we want to discover is what's called a witness fire, a fire that you actually see start, that's burning in the pot. And the quick and easy way to put that fire out is to put the lid on the pot to smother the fire. A real easy step that'll extinguish a fire and cause no damage to your kitchen. However, as you know, many fires get out of control and they're not witnessed, and they require the application of other devices like a home fire extinguisher, for example.
Fire extinguishers bring up an interesting question. Can someone just go out and buy a fire extinguisher, put it in their home, in their kitchen or what have you, and just expect that when they want to use that extinguisher that they're going to be able to use it with no problem whatsoever?
Absolutely not. There's no acquired knowledge when you purchase extinguisher. It requires some training. And what we recommend people to do is to have fire extinguishers in their home because they're a very valuable tool. But contact your local fire department to get some specialty training on how to use that fire extinguisher.
So that is available to them?
Absolutely. Fire departments across the country work real hard in educating, like we're doing today, to teach people the dangers of fire and how to not have yourself in harm's way.
Good piece of equipment to have is that fire extinguisher. Another one would be smoke alarms. What would you tell people about that?
Well, smoke detectors are probably the first line of defense to get occupants out of a home. We know that smoke detectors should be located on each level of your home. They should be in your areas between the function part of your home and the sleeping room, as well as smoke detectors in every sleeping room. And when they go off, they're normally alerting within 2 minutes of first flame, and they give you about 2 minutes to get out.
Thanks, Chief. That's great information. When we return, we'll move from the stove top to the stove itself.
Cooking fires in the kitchen aren't the only source of fire. During cookouts, gas and charcoal grills are a prime hazard for fires. In 1999, grills caused 1,500 structure fires and 4,200 outdoor fires. 1 year's worth of grill fires accounted for about $30 million of property damage. Whether in the kitchen or outdoors, take precautions to prevent cooking fires.
Welcome back. Chief, we were talking about fires on the stove top. Let's talk about fires now involving the stove itself.
Right. Well, first off, our stove needs to be maintained. We need to make sure that we keep it clean. We inspect it for any problems. A good example would be an electric burner that's not working. Instead of just never using it again, have it repaired. There may be a problem why that electric burner is not working. Having your wire inspected. Over time, grease and other dirt and dust get inside that stove, so cleaning the inside of the stove is very, very important.
What about those that would misuse that stove, such as using the stove to heat the home?
Right, we see a lot of fires, but also a lot of exposures to carbon monoxide gas, people using the gas burners to heat a room, which a stove is not designed to heat. It's not vented properly, and certainly it's a very dangerous situation. And it's not designed to run hours and hours at a time like people would do if they were using it for heating their home.
In the event that someone's cooking on the stove, or if they did happen to be using it to heat the house, which we don't want that to happen, what are the dangers in having nearby combustibles around?
Very dangerous, and we're talking about the paper towels, the plastics, kitchen accessories, as well as other type of materials like clothing and things. Very, very dangerous because they can easily be dropped on the stove and start a fire that can get out of control in a matter of seconds.
Okay. If a fire was to break out in the oven, not on the stovetop, but in the oven, what can someone do to solve that problem?
Well, if a fire was to occur inside the enclosed oven, never open it. Your first inkling is to open it to try and put it out. That's the wrong thing to do. That oven is designed to hold the heat and the temperatures that fire is burning at. So leave it closed and turn the power off, and eventually will go out.
There's another type of oven that we should talk about, microwave ovens. How about some problems with those?
Well, we love microwave ovens because we can eat faster. It don't take as long to cook in. Microwave ovens themselves have a danger. And if there was a fire inside of a microwave oven, you would follow the same procedure. You would turn it off, unplug it, and leave the door closed.
Thanks a lot for those tips. So we've seen that cooking poses more risk than just a burnt dinner. Now let's review the answers to our spot quiz.
Now it's time to review our spot quiz. Did you spot the 3 fire risks on this stove? These turned-out handles create a risk for small children. Let's fix that. Also, let's move that pot holder way too close to the open flame out of the way, our second hazard. And finally, that old grease on those nearby burners could catch on fire the next time they're used. Clean it up as soon as possible. Gas ovens like this may be great for baking, but the open flame inside can generate enough heat to ignite combustibles nearby. Let's move them out of the way, along with any other flammables. Despite your best efforts, a grease fire has flared up. How do you put it out quickly? Put on an oven mitt and carefully slide the lid over the pan to smother the flames. Then turn off the burner and don't remove the lid until it's completely cool. Never try to carry the pan outside or to the sink, and never pour water or flour on a grease fire. Only use baking soda. If a fire breaks out in the oven, close the oven door, turn off the oven, and keep it closed. If there's a fire in your microwave, keep the door closed and unplug it. Call the fire department and have the microwave repaired or replaced.
Most cooking fires start when a common household item like grease, for example, ignites nearby combustibles. Inspect your kitchen for fire hazards and keep an eye on what you're cooking. A watched pot may never boil, but it also won't catch fire.
One fire that we responded to in a campus was related to smoking material. It did involve a fatality. Most probably the person went to sleep, the smoking material fell from his fingers to the floor or to the furniture, smoldered for quite a while. Once it goes into a smoldering stage, it'll eventually erupt into flames, and then of course it catches everything that's around it on fire. We would only assume that if it had been some type of smoke detector in that apartment, that it may have saved this person's life.
Did you know that smoking materials like cigarettes, cigars, and pipes are the leading cause of fire deaths and the third leading cause of fire injuries in the United States? Carelessness when smoking can take place anywhere in the home, but it's most common in the bedroom. That, along with other open flame risk and electrical hazards, make the bedroom the next place we need to explore to help fireproof our home.
Let's see how fire safe your bedroom is. If you're a smoker, what type of ashtray can help you avoid fire risks? What's the best way to dispose of cigarette ashes? What should you never do with matches or a lighter? Which is more dangerous, candles that burn quickly or ones that burn slowly? What's better for fire protection, sleeping with an open bedroom door or closed bedroom door? Take your best guess and jot down your answers. We'll review this spot quiz later.
The bedroom is where we relax at the end of the day. It's also the place where a lot of people have one last smoke, but if they're not careful, it may be their very last. Chief Browning, what makes smoking in the bedroom so hazardous?
Well, smoking in the bedroom is very dangerous. Aside from people sleeping in the bedroom and not being totally coherent to where their cigarette is or where it's been, also when you mix in retired people who don't respond quickly, elderly people, also when you look at people who are under the influence of alcohol and certain medications, they can easily fall asleep and forget they had this this cigarette actually lit and smoldering in their home.
What about, you talked about some of the homes, or let's talk about products in the home now. Are newer or older mattresses a factor in smoking accidents?
Well, mattresses manufactured after 1973 we know are tested with some fire retardant standards. However, all mattresses will burn and will put out toxic smoke that will kill someone. I mean, we had a fire several years ago where a person died in their bed smoking, and the fire never had a chance to catch the rest of the house on fire before they were actually perished in the fire.
That's bad. Let's talk about whether or not it's even advisable to smoke in bed or the bedroom for that matter.
Well, it's never advisable to smoke in the bedroom because you put yourself in a situation where you would be laying down, you would be relaxing, and you can easily fall asleep and forget that smoke, that cigarette is either in your hand or even still in the ashtray for that matter.
If we do smoke in the bedroom, though, are there ways that we can do it more safely than others?
Well, experts will tell you make sure you leave the lights on so you would not fall asleep. Make sure you have enough containers, large containers to keep your cigarettes in, containers that are actually on nightstands, not on the bed to where it could be tipped over. Those type of practices will add a little bit of safety, but the real rule of thumb should never be to smoke in bed.
What about the ashes themselves, whether it's in the bedroom or not, disposal of the ashes and the old cigarette butts? What should someone do to make that a safer procedure?
Typically, spent ashes will not ignite a fire if they're out for a period of time in the ashtray. We see more fires from discarded cigarette butts that were burning, especially if you don't take the time to possibly put them in water or pour water on them to make sure they're out.
A cigarette butt that may still have some fire attached to it that doesn't get disposed of properly, that cigarette butt falls down in a couch, a chair, or even on the bed itself. How long will that cigarette butt continue to burn?
Well, a cigarette butt that drops down in a confined space like that with poor oxygen content could actually smolder for several hours before it reignites and develops as actually being that chair or sofa catching on fire. And that's something to think about when you have parties and gatherings at your home or business where a lot of people are smoking in the building. You want to check those sofas and chairs to make sure that after everyone's gone, there are no discarded cigarette butts accidentally.
Talking about smoking in the bedroom, obviously you have a fire source there with the smoking. What about another fire source in the bedroom? For instance, candles. What can you tell us about that in the bedroom?
Well, candles are a big concern. I mean, it's kind of a thing now. Everyone has to have the scented candles and decorative candles, and we see them in bedrooms and bathrooms. We want to be very careful with candles. Make sure that they're in the type of containers that cannot get tipped over. Make sure that if we have a candle burning, we follow the same rules as in our kitchen. We're there attending to the candle. Never leave a candle burning when you're not in the room or perhaps when you leave your home.
There are those that maybe have the mindset that over time a candle is just going to burn itself out. Is that true?
Well, yes, it will burn itself out, but we see a lot of fires occur when the candle gets down to the bottom of the wax layer, and heat on the underside can actually catch combustibles on fire, like the wooden desk that it's on or papers that are set next to the candle.
How about space heaters? We're going to talk a little bit more about space heaters later in the program, but what are some risks involved with space heaters in the bedroom?
Well, space heaters in most cases are portable, and they can be placed next to combustible materials like your bedspread, chairs, curtains, all the things in your home. They're very dangerous and require some special attention.
Another electrical risk that may be encountered in the bedroom would be electric blankets used, cold for heating, extra heating on the bed. Any risk involved with electric blankets?
Well, I think the biggest concern with electric blankets is that it's an electrical product, and where that cord plugs into the receptacle, the transformer that reduces that power and allows the electricity to flow throughout the blanket, those are all components that could fail and could also be damaged that could cause an electrical fire in your home.
Let's talk about another source of danger in the bedroom. Let's talk about night lights, and particularly the newer type of bulbs that are used, whether it's in a night light or any other type of lamp such as halogen bulbs. What are the risks there?
Right, most night lamps and night lights operate on a low intensity bulb that does not put out much heat. What we find is in a lot of cases when those bulbs burn out, people don't replace them with the manufacturer's recommended replacement, and they replace it with some type of a halogen or high intensity heat bulb, which in that fixture gets hot, can catch the fixture on fire, or of course any combustible materials near there could catch those on fire.
How about any other areas of the bedroom or appliances or items in the bedroom that could be a heat source that might cause a fire?
Well, one of the things that we want to be cognizant of is other electrical products in your bedroom, your televisions, video games, video machines. All these type of operations are there and require electricity, and that's a big electrical concern in the bedroom.
How about some of the items that are used in and around the bedroom, such as curling irons or the irons that you iron your clothes with? How about those precautions?
They're a big concern. Fortunately, the latest and greatest in irons and curling irons have automatic shut-offs and have heat sensors in them that'll shut them off as a safety factor, but we still want to treat those electrical appliances like they can start a fire if we leave them on. So the same rule of thumb, don't turn them on unless you're attending to them, and always think about turning them off. Many people get halfway to work and realize, man, did I turn the iron off? I wonder how many people actually drove home to make sure that iron was turned off. And think about that before you leave.
Probably in your career you've seen where because they didn't come home and check it, that maybe it did cause a problem.
Right, it was kind of a running trend. If we had a 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning structure fire, when we get there, chances are it was a curling iron or a clothing iron that started the fire. They left it at 8 or 9 to go to work, and that iron heated up and smoldered for maybe an hour or so and caused a fire. So we do see a lot of fire losses that occur because people leave those appliances on.
Okay. People go to sleep at night. Everyone has a different way of doing things. Some will sleep with their door closed. Some may sleep with the door open for whatever reasons they may have. What is the safest way to do that?
Well, the safest thing would be to have the additional smoke detectors, one in each bedroom. And if you have that, we recommend compartmentation, closing all the bedroom doors. And what that does is it inhibits the travel of heat, smoke, and fire to give you more time for, number one, the smoke detector to sense the fire and wake all the occupants up and give you more time to escape.
Thanks, Chief. That's great tips on bedroom safety. When we come back, we'll check some other rooms for fire hazards.
If you have a fire tonight, will you get out safely? You'll have a better chance of getting out safely if you've planned ahead. Develop a fire escape plan and practice it with the whole family. Everyone should know 2 ways out of each room and know where to meet outside. Make sure everyone understands that getting out is the first priority. And remember, once you're out, stay out until the fire department tells you it's safe to return.
We've been discussing fire risk in the bedroom and earlier in the kitchen, but what about other rooms in your house? Chief Browning, what are some other rooms that will present particular hazards around the home for fire?
Well, we have a big concern about our laundry rooms. Obviously, we have high producing heat machines like clothes dryers. We see a lot of fires in there. One of the more common causes in clothes dryers, outside of not cleaning the lint and keeping it properly maintained, is perhaps children who want to help mom clean clothes, and while she has her back turned, they throw one of the plastic toys in the dryer, and that can actually, the plastic will heat up and actually ignite and start a fire. Seen a lot of fires like that.
You mentioned lint just a second ago. Does lint collect around and under these dryers? Where does it all go? You know, people, you got to clean that lint screen out, but I've even noticed that when you clean it out, there's always some lint that tends to fall loose. Where does that go? And over time, an accumulation of that, can that present a problem?
Absolutely can. People think that just cleaning the screen will eliminate the lint problem, and it won't. You still have lint that'll make it through the filtration screen. You'll also have lint that'll fall behind the dryer and get sucked up into the moving parts of the dryer. So that's why probably every couple years we need to pull that dryer out completely and vacuum and clean all that lint.
How about the family that maybe the husband of the family, he's a hard-working guy, maybe he's a mechanic, gets some flammable combustibles maybe soaked into his clothes as part of his job. Clothes are washed and then put in the dryer. Are those combustibles still present, and can they present a problem inside the dryer?
It sure can. Anytime someone spills flammable liquids or burnable liquids on their clothing, that clothing should be cleaned thoroughly and not actually put into a fuel-fired dryer like an electric dryer or a gas dryer.
Thanks, Chief, for more good information. Now let's see how well we did on our spot quiz.
So, let's see how you did on the spot quiz. What type of ashtray can help you avoid fire risks? If you do smoke in your house, use large ashtrays that have wide lips. A lit cigarette is less likely to roll off onto nearby furniture. Never smoke in bed, and don't smoke when you're feeling sleepy. You're more likely to doze off and start a fire. What's the best way to dispose of cigarette ashes? Empty ashtrays into the toilet or an airtight metal container. And always check to see that cigarettes are extinguished before emptying into wastebaskets. Stubs that are still burning can smolder for hours, then ignite trash. What should you never do with matches or a lighter? Never encourage or allow a child to play with matches or a lighter, or to think of them as a toy. Once their curiosity is aroused, children may seek them out. Children as young as 2 years old are capable of lighting cigarette lighters and matches. Which is more dangerous? Candles that burn quickly or ones that burn slowly? Candles that burn quickly are more dangerous than ones that burn slowly and efficiently. Also, so-called gel candles pose special risks because they burn so hot. Most candle fires are started when people forget that candles are burning and leave for a long period of time. Blow them out when you leave a room and before going to sleep. What's better for fire protection, sleeping with an open bedroom door or closed bedroom door? Should a house fire break out, a closed bedroom door can provide added protection against rising heat and smoke and give you some extra time to escape. Having a working smoke alarm in your home can also double your odds of survival. Position it in your bedroom if you sleep with your door closed.
Over 80% of all fire deaths occur where people sleep. By avoiding smoking in bed and removing fire risk from your bedroom, you can have a good night's sleep, comfortable in the fact that you've done all you can to protect yourself.
We responded to an apartment fire where 3 children did die due to space heaters. That night was very cold. These children were in this bedroom. They had been left alone in the apartment. We determined that during the course of the night, one of the smaller children got up and pulled the space heater within very close distance to the bed that they were sleeping in. The space heater, being that close to the bed, caused a fire. These 3 children died as a result of the space heater being too close to some combustible material.
Heating equipment is a leading cause of home fires during the months of December, January, and February, and only trails cooking equipment in home fires year-round. The primary risk involved gas-fired space heaters, portable electrical heaters, and wood or coal-burning stoves and fireplaces.
Let's test our knowledge of home heating risks. How far away should you place a portable heater from your bed? How do you properly light a pilot light? What is creosote and why is it a hazard? Where is the most common place in a rural home that fires start? How often should you have your wood-burning stove or fireplace inspected? Keep on watching. We'll be back later in the show to review these questions and answers.
Fire statistics show that 2 of every 3 home heating fires in the United States and 5 out of every 6 related deaths were attributed to space heating equipment. Chief, what are some of the hazards involved with the different types of space heaters?
Well, the primary hazard is we place these space heaters too close to combustible materials. And we teach folks that you need to have a 3-foot clearance. Actually, a 6-foot clearance would be better. A minimum clearance around where no combustible materials can get to this space heater and ignite it.
The space heaters themselves, there's different types. What are some of those common types of space heaters that people can get?
Well, the 2 common types is your gas-fired, which is your natural gas propelled in most cases. The most common and easiest to get would be your electric space heaters because you can plug them in and place them anywhere.
Regardless of what type of space heater you may have, how about some safety tips when using that heater at home? Where, location, where do we put this heater?
Well, like I said, it needs to be in an open area. It needs to be an area that we can watch it and attend it. Same rules as in kitchens. We don't want to have these heaters on when we're not in the room with them. If we leave, we need to turn the heaters off.
How about placing, maybe if you have the small electrical heater, is it okay to set that up on a dresser or any type of furniture for that matter?
No, it would not be because that dresser is a combustible material as well as it could easily be knocked over. It's better on a hard surface, a flat surface that there's not a chance of someone bumping it or knocking it over or coming in contact with it.
Let's switch to another type, the gas-fueled space heater. What are some hazards associated with that particular type?
Well, obviously, the fire hazards we've already discussed, but probably one of the more common is the dangers of carbon monoxide poisoning. These heaters are required to be vented in some type of environment so the carbon monoxide doesn't stay in your home.
How about with that heater, lighting either the pilot light for that heater or lighting maybe an older gas-fueled heater? Are there hazards associated with the lighting of that type of heater?
Certainly there is. When you turn that fuel on, that gas on, if you don't have the match or the light stick ready to ignite, you can actually put raw gas that could ignite and cause an explosion. So there's a big concern with doing that, and of course adults should do that. You should never let children light pilot lights or light a gas burner.
Let's go back to electrical heaters for a moment. We were talking about location, where to put them and whether or not to leave them unattended. What about some things that may go on around these heaters activity-wise and things we need to avoid there?
Well, we mentioned children. You don't want children playing around this heater while it's operating. And what a lot of people don't think is animals. There's actually been instances where animals have knocked over these heaters, and in some cases animals have actually caught on fire and ran through a home and caught other things on fire. So very, very dangerous. So you really want to supervise the activities in this room. You don't want a lot of activities going on while these space heaters are being used.
Some of these heaters, especially the newer models, have, on the electrical side of it, have these automatic shut-off systems. Is that something that people would want to look for when getting one of these heaters?
Yeah, I think currently the industry, that's all they're making now is these trip devices that if the heater gets knocked over, it'll shut it off. But you want to make sure it does have that. It doesn't eliminate the fires that occur from placing combustible materials too close to it, however. So don't get a false sense of security that one safety measure will keep it from starting a fire, because it won't.
mentioned placing combustibles too near the heater. How about placing the heater too near some other hazards, an electrical heater such as water?
Right. Obviously, the electrical dangers that occur with water and electricity, you should never do that. You should never have it near water.
I personally know of a story where a woman was using a heater while taking a bath and put this heater on the edge of the tub. Through some accident, this electrical space heater fell into the tub with her, and she was electrocuted to death. So the placement of these heaters is very, very important, wouldn't you say?
Oh, that's exactly right. And for that matter, any electrical device near a bathtub or water is very dangerous, and you'd pay special attention to that.
Great information once again, Chief. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Did you know that fires caused by heating equipment are less likely to happen in apartment buildings than in homes? The reason is apartments have landlords who usually schedule regular maintenance to protect their property and avoid lawsuits. Protect your most valuable tenants, your family. Use supplementary heaters properly and keep them maintained.
Welcome back. We've been talking about portable heater safety, but did you know that in rural areas more fires start in the chimney than in any other place in the home? Often these fires are due to something known as creosote buildup. Chief, what can you tell us about creosote buildup? What is it, how does it get there, and what happens if it goes unchecked?
Well, creosote buildup is just the unburned products of the wood that's burning in your fireplace. It's seen a lot more in your pines and those type of woods. Obviously, we recommend that you use hardwood products and maintenance, because you're going to have the buildup regardless. You need to have a maintenance of your fireplace.
If you have this buildup, what hazards can then, what can be attributed to these, to the creosote buildup?
Well, outside of the type of wood you use, trying to burn too big of a fire in your fireplace where the byproducts do not burn away completely, we see that. And back to maintenance, you should have it checked every year and cleaned. Traditionally people did not use a professional to clean their fireplace chimneys because of the expense. If that's still a problem for people, you can now buy products over the counter to clean it yourself.
In the event that they don't get it cleaned either by a professional or do it themselves, which they can do nowadays, this creosote builds up over time. Is this creosote, is it flammable? Can a chimney fire actually occur from the buildup of this product?
Sure, two things occur, and creosote is a combustible type product. What happens is as it builds up into flume, it restricts the flow, so it allows heat to stay inside that flume and not vent out the top of the roof. So number one, that heat can cause damage and cause a fire in your home. Probably in the later stages, it'll actually ignite that creosote and cause a fire that burns completely up the flume, and you'll see flames shooting out the top of that 20, 30-foot stack.
Another wood-burning product that people may have in their house, we'll talk about fireplaces as well, but how about wood-burning stoves? What hazards are presented there?
Very similar to fireplaces. One of the bigger problems with wood-burning stoves is they stay hot, and with children and pets, you want to keep them away from it. But very similar to your fireplaces, you need to keep them maintained, annually have it cleaned, and make sure. Some actually come with a thermometer device that's in the flume to let you know if it's getting overheated, because wood-burning stoves seem to burn a little hotter because they're constructed out of metal.
Getting a fire started in a fireplace or a wood-burning stove, you and I both know countless stories about people using flammables, flammable liquids rather, to help get these fires going. Is that advisable?
Well, some people are impatient, including myself, and we don't have time to start a fire small and make it big. But what we don't want to do is use any type of flammable liquids. Flammable liquids should never be used. In fact, the only paper products that are probably halfway safe to use is newspaper. You don't want to use paper that has a lot of chemicals in it, like wrapping paper, or just plain trash and garbage and plastics, because they burn a lot hotter. So the use of anything other than ordinary newspaper should not be used in igniting a chimney fire. In fact, you can actually buy over the market certain types of kindling wood that you can actually light that's even more safer to start your fire.
Get it going a little slower, perhaps.
Correct.
So you get this fire going, regardless of fireplace or wood-burning stove. Can we just load it up? I mean, really get a really good big fire going in there, or is that something we want to guard against?
You know, obviously not. In today's current fireplaces that are being built, they're smaller than the ones that we probably grew up with. And I guess what I tell people is 2 to 3 logs is plenty in those type of fireplaces. If you put any more logs, you open yourself up to, number one, having a fire that's going to produce more heat than that appliance is designed to hold. And secondly, back to the creosote buildup, you'll have a lot of unburned products that'll attach itself to that flume and restrict the ventilation of the heat and smoke.
How about during the burning process? Even if you have a fire that is of the proper size, that's not too big a fire, there still can be problems of embers or sparks jumping out of that. What can we do to protect against that?
Well, here again, the industry does a good job of putting spark erection screens both at the fireplace and up the top of the flume. You want to have that screen closed when you're burning, because certainly sparks can pop out and catch carpet and combustibles and even burn someone if they're walking by the fireplace.
We were talking earlier about smoking and the disposal of the ashes there. What about the disposal of the ashes from our fireplace? What should we do with them? What should we put them in, and where should we take them?
Well, we should remove them and place them in a metal container and in a sealed container. We should never put them with our normal garbage and our trash can, because they themselves could still be smoldering and in time start a fire.
What things do we need to be aware of when we're about to start a fire in a fireplace?
Well, be concerned about the combustible materials that are around there. We talked about heating fires are more common in the colder times, so we're talking about Christmas. We're talking about our Christmas stockings hanging from the hearth. We're talking about all the decorative dolls and combustible materials that we place on the fireplace area. Be concerned about that and move those out the way before you start the fire.
We've talked about the creosote buildup in the chimney, considerations in and around the fireplace itself. But let's go up outside that chimney now. What's going to go on? You know, all this heat and flame and or sparks or what have you, embers. Some of that does travel to the top. Where will it go, and what do we need to do as far as precautions go to protect the home from that?
Well, here again, through our maintenance program, we're going to learn that a small fire is going to burn the products and not have sparks traveling completely through the flume. But as a safety factor, all of your current chimneys actually have spark erection devices, screens that are on top where the smoke and heat vents out. Make sure those have not been damaged, maybe by birds and things that tend to knock them out. Make sure they're still in place so when there is a spark, it won't leave the chimney flume and land on the roof of your home or the roof of your neighbor's home and potentially cause a fire.
Thanks a lot, Chief. More great information. Now let's see how we did on that spot quiz.
So, what do you know now about home heating risks that you didn't know before? Let's find out. How far away should you place a portable heater from your bed? Space heaters need their space. Position them at least 3 feet away from combustibles like your bedspread, clothing, or paper, and at least 3 feet away from walls. How do you properly light a pilot light? Always follow the manufacturer's instructions for lighting the pilot on your home heater. But in general, always light the match before turning on the gas, since gas vapors can accumulate and ignite explosively. What is creosote, and why is it a hazard? Creosote is an unavoidable product of burning wood. It can build up in stovepipes and chimneys and cause a fire inside the chimney chute. Over time, the excessive heat from the internal fire can damage the chimney structure. Try using only seasoned hardwood for fires. Soft, moist wood accelerates creosote buildup. Where is the most common place in a rural home that fires start? In rural areas, more fires start in the chimney than any other place of the home. Keep the area around the hearth clear of debris and flammable materials. Use a metal mesh screen to prevent sparks from flying into the room. And never burn trash in your fireplace. How often should you have your wood-burning stove or fireplace inspected? Have wood-burning stoves and chimneys inspected and cleaned annually by a certified chimney specialist. Besides spotting creosote formation, they can spot structural flaws that may create risks.
When the temperature drops outside, fire hazards rise inside. Don't let your use of home heaters put you at risk. Keep them maintained and away from combustibles, and don't leave them alone. Warm your toes, don't toast them.
One case that stands out in my mind displaced not one but two families. It was a duplex. One family living here had an overloaded extension cord running to an air conditioner unit. This lady left to go to work, left this air conditioner on, and it overloaded, it smoldered, it started a fire, which completely destroyed her home and her neighbor's home.
Between 1994 and 1998, electrical equipment was the third leading cause of home fires and the second leading cause of fire deaths. Electrical equipment is used in almost every room of the house, so it's important to be careful no matter where you are in your home.
Let's review your electrical safety knowledge. See if you can spot the fire risks. You got a great buy on that lamp at that garage sale. Sure, it's pretty, but is it safe? Well, this room looks nice, nothing ugly on the floor, but can you spot an electrical fire hazard? It's time to grab some breakfast. Can you spot the fire risks before we burn down the house? Your child is playing peacefully with her toys. Nothing wrong with this picture, or is there? Keep watching. We'll see how many electrical fire hazards you spotted later.
Electrical fires claim the lives of 700 Americans each year and injure 3,000 more. Chief Browning, what are some of the common areas that present a fire risk related to electricity?
Well, probably improper installation of electricity is one that comes to mind. The other would be using electrical wiring for this unintended purpose, overloading electrical wiring, poor maintenance when a wire is failed or is possibly in a situation where it has an arc or some type of short.
Let's look at them one at a time now. How about installation of an electrical device?
Installation is very important, making sure that you have the proper size wire, the proper wire that will run the appliance or device that you're trying to operate.
How about these do-it-yourselfers? You know, they don't need that professional. They can run that wire themselves. Is that a problem?
Yeah, it's a big problem. In fact, my mayor jokes at me. He says that I'm a hammer man, not a screwdriver man, so I tend to take shortcuts and tear things up. So, yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, you certainly don't want to experiment with electricity. You want to have, anytime you install hard wiring in your home, it wants to be to code, and you want to have it inspected properly. And most areas of the country have the ability to go and inspect and make sure that wiring is done properly, and there's a reason for that, because a lot of fires occur because of wiring improperly installed or the wrong kind of wiring being used.
If it's done improperly, loose connections could be a problem there. Older wiring as well. What can you tell us about that?
Well, older wiring deteriorates through time. It's not as strong and it's not as good as what it was when it was installed. So older wiring at some point has to be replaced. When your home gets to the 30, 35-year mark, there's probably wiring in the home that needs to be replaced.
If you have improperly installed devices, what can come of that?
Well, it's usually a long-term process of either overloading, overheating, and of course when overheating occurs, the wire itself is deteriorated, the insulation around the wire becomes exposed in the wire, and then what ends up happening is you have a phenomenon that will occur of arcing, where these wires that aren't quite touching like they should be, or not quite as strong as they should be, or inside connectors that are becoming old, they start arcing, and this arcing causes heat and will eventually cause a fire.
What are some things that we may see around the home that could tip us off that we have an electrical problem? What are some things we could look for that we can notice?
Well, a lot of things, and people probably see them all the time and ignore them. First would be lights that flicker. A real common telltale would be if you have breakers in your home that are tripping on a regular basis. That means there's a problem.
If we have sparking or we're blowing fuses, anything like that, can we just replace the fuse or reset that breaker and just go on about our business, or what could we do to prevent that from happening some more?
Well, I think when a breaker trips, you need to find out what receptacle or what power source it is and determine what are you trying to run. And you got one or two problems. Either the product you're trying to run is requiring more electricity than that circuit can provide, or you have a problem in that circuit. Either way, you have to find out what the problem is. Just resetting the breaker and continually doing that over time is not a safety measure. It's a problem fixing to happen.
If you locate that source in one of our video packages, it talks about an air conditioner being run on an extension cord. If that is causing a problem, can you simply, instead of just resetting the breaker, can we just disconnect and then take it from there?
Well, probably in those situations, an air conditioner on an extension cord is very common, and it's also a very common cause of fires. We should never operate an air conditioner on an extension cord. What we need to find is a proper amperage circuit, which most air conditioners run on a 30 amp circuit, and your normal receptacle in your bedroom that runs your clock, radio, and your television are not 30 amp. So you need to find the proper power source for that air conditioner, and an extension cord is not the way to reach it.
Let's talk about electrical appliances themselves now. What are some appliances that we may have in our homes that can present an electrical problem or an electrical hazard?
Well, anything that's plugged in can cause a fire. Anything from the blender, the food processor, the television, the VCR, the video game, the clock, radio, everything in your home that is plugged into an electrical source at some point could either overload, fail. Manufacturers do a lot of testing, but problems still occur. And if that appliance is plugged in or device is plugged in, it can cause a fire.
I think some people have the impression that if the device is plugged in but it's not currently being used, that it's not a problem. One of the prominent ones out there would be home computers. People plug these things in. You have a lot of different electrical devices attached, and they just let them stay on all the time. Does that present a hazard itself?
It certainly can, because even though you're not using the computer, the components, the mechanical fan in the computer, all those things are still running, and if they were to fail, they could cause a fire inside that cabinet, and resulting could be a major catastrophic loss in your home. So if you're not using appliances, you should turn them off, and in many cases keep them unplugged if it's something you don't use on a regular basis.
Regardless of the appliance, if you're having a problem with an appliance causing a problem, what things can you look for that may tip you off to let you know that there is a problem with that appliance?
Well, I mean, in the operation of it, of course, inspect the electrical wiring to see if it has exposed wiring. But in the operation of that appliance, if switches don't seem to work properly, if the appliance makes a different noise than it normally makes, or if you touch the appliance and it's hot to touch, things just totally out of the ordinary should tip you off, and you should, either have it repaired, or if it's something that's expendable, replace it.
I think one thing we've seen a lot of, and seem to continue to see a lot of, is the use or misuse of extension cords. How does the use or misuse of extension cords present special problems where electricity is concerned?
Well, people tend to use extension cords for permanent wiring, which is a no-no. I mean, you should never use it for that. Extension cords being used for permanent wiring, we find that they put them across rooms where rugs and chairs and people walk on them all the time. They're not designed for that. One of the more common causes that kind of seem to crop up is where you plug your extension cord into the wall and you have maybe chairs and furniture that are up against that extension cord. It can damage the insulation and cause a short that will eventually arc and cause a fire.
You mentioned that cord that runs underneath the rug. There are those that will tell you that the problem is that you're walking on the rug, you're putting pressure on the cord, and you're breaking the cord down. But what else is a factor with that cord being located underneath the rug?
Well, what that does is has that wire overheats and produces heat. That heat can't vent away, and that carpet and things of that nature actually insulating it even further and keeping the heat in that wire, which could cause a short and arc.
What about the problem of someone that has an older home, new appliance? You have a 2-prong outlet and a 3-prong appliance. I think we know what happens there. They don't get the adapters and ground that thing out. A lot of people simply just break that ground prong off. If that happens, what is the hazard then?
Well, the purpose in that 3rd prong is a ground fault. That actually sends the message to kick the breaker to stop the flow of electricity, and it grounds that device. So in older homes that don't have ground fault, or in newer homes with appliance that doesn't have a ground fault, you don't have that extra level of protection.
How about the number of devices that you can plug into an extension cord or an outlet? What are some hazards there?
Well, what we want to do is never expect more amperage out of a receptacle than it's rated to produce. And the rule of thumb is one appliance, one significant appliance for each receptacle, and maybe that's the only appliance that could run in the case of a 30 amp service or a 15 amp service. So I would say that you would not want to run multiple things out of one circuit. And just because it's a separate receptacle doesn't mean it does not share the same circuit. Because when you turn all of those devices on at one time, you could very well require more electricity than it can produce for you.
You're talking about overloading at a receptacle. I think one of the best examples of that is people getting what we call cube taps and plugging multiple appliances in. Explain what cube taps are and how they're used or misused, as the case may be.
Well, I guess it's a psychological thing. If you can plug two things into one thing and make seven, that's a good thing. And no, that's not a good thing. And what they are, they're just a multiple plug-in blocks where you can, perhaps plug in 6 appliances into one receptacle. It's a very bad thing because you're splitting that electricity off, and you're not producing any more capacity by doing that. You're actually reducing the capacity. So it's a dangerous thing if you're running a bunch of high capacity type appliances.
If you suspect that you may be running too much of this, is there a way that you can tell? Can you check that outlet to see if it's warm or not, or should you?
Well, at the point that you have arcing and the outlet's hot, it's probably too late. I guess what we really need to recommend people to do is if you're going to use an electrical device, know what its capacity is, and it should be marked on the device, as well as the manufacturer's recommendations, instructions that come with the device that you buy, and make sure that you're not overloading it.
We talked about either overloading or bad wiring or bad installation causing fuses and breakers to blow, and the things that you could or could not do with that. What should you actually do if fuses and breakers continue to just blow out?
Well, first thing is make sure what you're running is not overloading the circuit. And if that's not what it is, then you probably have some type of problem in your hard wiring or in the breaker switching device. At that point, I would think a licensed professional needs to come in and survey the problem and repair the problem.
Chief, let's talk about considerations where children are involved with electricity around the house. What should people look out for there?
Well, I think every mom and dad child-proof their home when a new child's coming in. And one of the most important things in child-proofing is to put the plastic protectors, the covers, over the receptacles so children won't try and plug things into it. I mean, they see us do it, so they think they can do it. I also think about extension cords and electrical appliances that they can come in contact with and turn on. What they don't put in their hands, they put in their mouth. So be very concerned about that and isolate electrical sources from your children.
Chief, I'd like to thank you for being here with us today, sharing some great information for our viewers. Thank you. Now let's review our house of electrical fire horrors.
Now let's review some common electrical fire hazards. That garage sale lamp isn't such a good buy when you consider the cost of a house fire caused by that frayed cord. Have faulty appliance wiring as well as home electrical systems repaired by a qualified specialist. Most electrical fires result from problems fixed by do-it-yourselfers. That's a nice rug, but see that cord running under it? Over time, it can wear as people walk over it until you've got an exposed live wire that can overheat and ignite nearby combustibles. Try rerouting the cord or moving the lamp. Before you cook your breakfast and your house, unplug one of those appliances. Find another outlet, or just make your coffee first, then your waffles. Remember to plug only one heat-producing or high-wattage appliance into an outlet at a time. This pretty picture becomes beautiful once we add these outlet covers, keeping little fingers from making a shocking discovery.
Welcome back. Imagine if your home were a business. How do you think you'd do if a firefighter came in to inspect it for fire hazards? Pretty good? Not so good? Probably much better after what you've seen today. It's easy to overlook common fire hazards in your own home, but it's just as easy to correct them. Take the time to do your own fire inspection room by room. Your home is your castle. Make sure it remains standing.